Welcome to the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrienne Campbell, where we talk about real life, challenge assumptions, and explore different ways of being in the world. This week for episode 18, I have Tricia Dietrich, all the way back from episode 2, back on the show again. In this episode, we will be talking about her work as an artist and creator, how she helps people connect to their inner muse, and her work using art as part of a therapeutic process. I hope you enjoy. So welcome, Ms. Tricia Dietrich. This is the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrienne Campbell, where we talk about real life, challenge assumptions, and explore different ways of being in the world. This week for episode 18, I have Tricia Dietrich back in the studio. We're going to be talking this week about her work as an artist and creator and how she helps people connect to their inner muse and uses art as part of a therapeutic process. So a little bit about Tricia. Tricia is the creatrix of Sacred Source Studios, a space that utilizes ritual, creativity, and movement to help people connect to their intuition, discover the language of their soul, and live legendary lives. Tricia is a retired health professional with a master's degree in health sciences from the University of Missouri. She is also a certified intentional creativity teacher and coach, a Usui Reiki Master, Theta Healer, and Priestess in the Temple of Witchcraft. Tricia incorporates all of her skills into her online courses, coaching programs, and energy work sessions. Tricia's art and offerings have helped hundreds of people worldwide to get out of their own way and embody their unique blueprint. Many of her clients come to Tricia when their life is turned upside down and the traditional methods of healing aren't working. She uses non-traditional methods that blend energy work and creativity to facilitate lasting transformation for her clients. When she's not working, you can find Tricia on her deck, drinking a glass of dry red wine with her handsome hubby and the hummingbirds. At night, she can be found dancing in the woods under the moonlight with her sisters. So welcome back, Tricia. We had Tricia on the show for episode 2, so way back now. It's incredible. Like 16 episodes later, here we are again. So if you want to know more about Tricia's story and healing journey of how she got to the beautiful place she's at now in her life, please go back to episode 2 and listen or give it a watch on YouTube or Spotify. And it'll really kind of give you a beautiful background to like today's episode and what we're going to be discussing. So yeah. So welcome, Tricia.
Thank you for having me, Adrienne.
Always. So today we're talking about therapeutic art practices. And you do so many beautiful things. And for those of you who don't know, Trish is also the illustrator for my newest Reiki book that I just came out with, Learn to Practice Reiki, available on Amazon. And that was a beautiful project, but it's definitely outside her scope. So the art she does is like the painting that's behind her, like gorgeous, beautiful art, which she has on yoga mats. You can buy originals, prints, I think, right? But anyways, the thing that I love the most and that I'm most excited to share today is the classes that you teach and the one-on-one work you do with people. So I'm going to stop talking now. And I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about like, what is therapeutic art? How is it different than regular art?
So, and I'm going to share with you what my idea of therapeutic art is, because some people, all art is therapeutic, right? I feel like all art is therapeutic. So I just want to lead with that. I think that artists do art. The artists that I have been in contact with and know, they do their art because they are led to and because it is somewhat of a therapeutic process for them. And that's why we're so drawn to it, right? We're drawn to their stories. We're drawn to what it got invoked in them, what led them and inspired them to do the art, and then what this artistic representation means. That's why we have art history, right? It's all about the stories of how these artists came to be. So I think that all art in itself is therapeutic, both for the person creating and for the spectators, for the people who are looking at it and taking it in. It has the power to move us into higher levels of consciousness. And it also has the power to create new innovations in our world. But I feel like there is, when I started getting into art, I came from a science background. So I traveled around the country in my early 20s and I wanted to be a scientist. Well, I did not know whether I wanted to be an artist or a scientist. I chose science because I just couldn't see a logical way. This was in the 90s. Aside from being an illustrator, like a textbook illustrator, there was no like other career besides being an artist. And I really just I went the science route, chose that had more of a path for me. So I did a lot of wildlife research when I graduated from college. I worked with the USGS and I traveled around the country. I packed all my belongings in my car and just went from job to job. I worked with the US government and with those research scientists who were hired through the USGS and other departments of Fish and Wildlife. And so I got to assist in a lot of research studies, and I got to see a lot of the field of science. And then I decided that I did not want to go the route of becoming a scientist. So I went back home and worked in an industrial factory for 2.5 years. And in that time, a master's program got developed at the university that I graduated from. So I went back to school, I got a master's degree and became an ultrasound technologist. Again, very technical field, right? But there is an art to ultrasound. There's an art to the way that you get your images, you're capturing. I got to look at people's heartbeats, got to look at a lot of babies and a lot of internal organs. And a lot of people got to look at mine when we were training. So,
well, and the human body is art, right? So I think art can be a very loose term.
Yeah, the human body is a divine art form that our souls are embodying at every moment. Like we can choose to be an embodied being every minute of every day, and return back to that place within ourselves, which is a lot of what I use my art processes to help people do. So there is a fine art is, I feel like fine art is technical. People learn technical skills and they might use this art as a therapeutic process, and there might be something that drives them there. But there are technical skills that people learn in art school, and not everybody can do what they're doing. And what I have witnessed then when I became an artist, it was just to heal my own body, right? I didn't go to art school. So, and I started doing something called intentional creativity, which I later became a coach and a teacher, certified coach and teacher for. But I did that not because I wanted to be an artist. I did that because it was healing my body in a way that I didn't really, it was drawing my healing to me. My healers were coming to me, but they were coming after I would make a big painting like this. So this is a big manifestation process that would take about 2.5 years for me for that manifestation to come and be looking at me in the eye physically. And that was very therapeutic for me. But fine art it's just people go and they look at it and they look at the technicality of it, right? In a fine art gallery, they'll look at the light sources, they'll look at the skill, they'll try and figure out how this person did all of that. And what I've noticed with a lot of fine artists or even a lot of designers is that they start from the beginning with an end product and end image in mind. And if not, they have an idea of where they're going. Like they have an idea of that end product, and that is not present in any of my art classes. So
that's more my style of art too. Like I don't know what I'm really gonna do most of the time. I just sit and
a lot of artists are challenged by that. They'll start making something and they like the way that it looks, and then you have to cover over it completely, and they don't want to do that, right? Like, what's going on? So therapeutic art, I'll get back that is the process though. So I have to encourage them to stick with the process and see what comes out of it. So I feel like therapeutic art, a lot of that is based on the process of creation instead of the in creation itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where art therapy comes into play, and other things that are more focused on the process and not as much the end product. But those processes, the focus of that process is catharsis, right? It's to help people uncover things from the subconscious, because art and drawing is a great, and any kind of creativity, even movement, is a great way to get past the logical problem solving parts of your brain and access your subconscious, which is literally what's underneath the tip of the iceberg, right?
Right.
And so that's what a lot of therapeutic art techniques are designed to do. And there's a lot of different ones. There's art therapy, and I do want to make the clarification between art therapy and what I do. Art therapists come to my classes to create art for themselves.
Yeah.
So, and I love it when they come, because we sit and talk about how it is just different, because art therapists, they're trained in some kind of therapy. So their techniques are therapy based, and they do what's called analysis. So when people are trying to make connections with their past of like past trauma, trying to connect the dots. A lot of times if people come to me and they're really we're in the process of creating, and they are just talking about their life, but there's not a connection of, well, this is why I'm here, because this is what brought me here today. There's not really that connection, like they're just spouting out things that are coming up and sharing it with me. If they haven't connected the dots, then oftentimes I do refer them to a therapist. And once they've...
Well, and I was just going to ask too, so like, and tell me if you think this is similar. So like coaching versus therapy, right? Like in my world is, we're not working together because you have something that's like debilitating or keeping you from functioning in life, or like, your trauma is impacting your ability to, have relationships. Like we're not working on any type of severe dysfunction or limitation. We're like, I work with people who are like pretty good and want to get better, and it seems like similar to kind of what you're saying is like, if somebody's coming in like, I just need to work through some stuff and like, blah, 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 like that, we can do that. But if it's like, yeah, like, I was abused as a child and want to, I think art would be a good way for me to explore that. That might be more therapy, art therapy.
Yeah. What I will do is ask more questions at that point, because they might be getting therapy, but talk therapy is also different than the creative processes. So I will ask them, are you working with a counselor? Have you been able to trace back the story of how this trauma has impacted your life? And if they don't have a clear answer for me, then I'll ask them, are you working currently with a therapist? And I'll even ask them more specific questions, if depending on the issue at hand. And if they're not, then going into these creative processes does bring up a lot of stuff. So it's different than coaching, because you've got that, you're accessing your subconscious and bringing it along with that coaching, which I do individually with people. That is a very deep process. And oftentimes I do recommend that they are seeing a therapist, depending on the process that they want me to take them through, so that they can handle what is coming up. Because what I do is action oriented. I will be guiding them through, but the story, and I will give them coping mechanisms and access to me, depending on how deep it's going. I'll give them a couple calls where they can access me. We'll go, and this happens, and we'll go through some processes. But if that is not helpful, then I do have a pretty big disclaimer that you need to be able to help yourself. And if I'm not helping you, you need to get extra help, because I am not trained in analysis or any of that. And so I'm very upfront about that. touchy when it's going into something that I don't feel like I'm going to be able to hold. I'm without extra support. I'm really honest about that because I don't have that therapeutic background.
Yeah. And just like with my clients, like in the episode with Amanda Quick, we talked about like just making sure that they're getting the right help and support that they need. And I've worked with a lot of people where like I'm their coach, and then they also have a therapist.
Yes.
And even if we work on like the same topic or theme, we work at it from different angles.
Yes.
So that they get that full, it's like, you know, your support team, like helping you be as awesome as you can be. Yeah.
Yeah. Like for instance, I worked with someone who was going through a grieving process. She had lost her mom recently and she had a counselor, but I was helping her with some artistic ways and also some ways to set up rituals around that grief process that she was then taking back to her counselor, and then they're evaluate, oh, well, yeah, this is working. Okay, well, keep doing, you know, so but had she never grieved anything before, never wasn't familiar with that process, then I would definitely, if anybody wanted to do a painting process with me, because you basically, that is a layer deeper than connecting, right? So I have 3 different steps to my process. And if they want to do a painting with me, that's the creation process. If they haven't connected the dots yet, that needs to happen before just going and doing the painting with me. So, so it is therapeutic, and it is action oriented in a way, because I am leading them into taking action, but it's action creating something and also developing strategies on how they can take practical action in their life, so that they also, something that I really value with my art and what I try to teach people is that people think that creativity and art is just this whimsy, willy-nilly thing. And it doesn't have to be. It's not just for entertainment. You can use these things. What you see is beautiful. This is helped me clarify who I am and what my work in the world is, this whole process. And that is the reason why I did it. And so for me, the art that is created is a very practical way to make steps forward.
So like from what you're explaining, I'm just getting these images, right? Because like when I think about the unconscious mind, it's this giant ocean of image and connection and possibility and opportunity, our past, our future, everything we've ever been and will ever be, right? Exists in this space. And it can be really scary and overwhelming to just like jump into that, right? Which like when we do in Jungian space, we do active imagination, and there's like, you know, like, hey, be a little careful before you're just like, woo. And so it sounds like you have like a system of steps where like you are like a guide for them so that they're not wandering into this huge, wild, unknown place on their own, right?
Yes, I have a very, with the intent, my teacher does an amazing job of giving us a system. Nice. And in addition, and I use a form of active imagination or shamanic journey work. And people are basically in that the whole time they're painting with me.
So cool.
So they're in that place in a meditation. And I like to work in the archetypes. The archetypes are within us, right? They're bringing the muse out, but it's your muse. It's not the universal muse. I just feel like tapping into that collective consciousness when you're tapping into like deities. And I know how to do that, but I feel like it's really important that you really know yourself first. And so I'm careful.
To get lost in that.
Well, you really get lost in that collective, and that's just diving in. And if you don't have a map and you don't know, then it's okay to do that. Just know that you might encounter some things that are going to shake you up a little bit and that you might not know how to deal with. So I think that it's important to have, and I call myself a channel and a guide, because ultimately when you put all this art away, that is what I am. I was born with a gift of being able to channel, and I am a guide, and I know where I'm going. I've never led anybody astray. I know where I'm going, and I know where people end and where the collective begins. And I think that's also important for people that want to experiment with this work. You got to know where you end and the collective begins, and have good boundaries with all of that, because stuff is going to come through even when you're painting. So I really teach people how to set up these protections for themselves in a ritualistic way.
I do the same thing when I teach active imagination. Yeah. Because you have to. People underestimate the unconscious mind constantly.
Yes,
constantly, and it's like, man, that place is wild. you gotta buckle up. You gotta be ready for this adventure, and you gotta have a line back out.
Yeah, and that isn't like I teach in my work. That isn't really the first step either. The first step is to connect. So I have three places that I take people to, and one is just connection. And for those, I offer a lot of exercises that really help people establish a daily ritual or even practice. I mean, I'll call it practice, because that's a more like, ritual sounds like, oh my God, it's not that at all. But
ritual doesn't have to be like ding, 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 and candles. Yeah. It can be, but it doesn't have to.
If you want to enrich that whole experience, then do those things. But honestly, my morning ritual to connect through art it takes 20 minutes, and it involves doodling and drawing and painting. And that's how I maintain a connection with my intuition. And that's how I connect. And that process is called metacognitive drawing. Anybody can do it. I am teaching a class on how to do it, and we'll be going on, I think I'm going to choose Instagram. I'm trying to figure out TikTok. I don't know about going on Instagram Live and just doing these doodles with people, because they're great ways to connect. Like, they're not the big sexy that these paintings are, so people aren't as drawn to them, but they're kind of like the meat and potatoes, or the, it creates a baseline for you for your life.
Well, and I think
that you don't have to protect yourself for. You're not swimming in the deep unknown. You're not going that deep. You're just really taking 10 to 20 minutes to use something that's use art and create art, but use it for the purpose and for the intention of just connecting to your intuition every day, and it will change your life. So on that level, the first level, I offer classes. I'm offering a couple courses that is just about that. And then if you want to go a layer deeper into the creation, and you're basically learning how to create your life by design at this point, those are the painting classes, right? And those are where you're on a shamanic journey, and you're consummating a part of yourself and bringing it into form on the painting, as a painting. And this painting is magical in a way that you won't ever know until you do it. And then the third level is the embodiment, right? Then you're embodying the qualities that you painted in the painting. You're embodying them, and this enriches your life, and you're basically living that manifestation, that being that you painted. You know what that being feels like inside of you. And there's a lot of somatic exercises that are involved in that.
Okay, so 3 steps. The first one is connection, which is done through like just a regular practice. It's improving your connection to your intuition, your creativity. And I would bet that during that, you're also kind of firming up your ideals and boundaries around who you are and where that exists. Because like you said, you're not, we're not taking the dive yet.
No, not at all. No, this is just connection, and it's really connecting to your intuition and learning how to communicate with it. And you got to connect with something before you build a relationship with it, right? So thinking about all of these things, like your intuition as a person, you got to meet the person. You got to meet it first, and then have a few conversations with it to know how it talks and communicates and looks and feels. And so that's where the connection level comes in with these I do a lot with journal work with this, and cards, like card decks and things like that. That's for the connection.
And I, when I talk with people about connecting with their dream images, I often say, like, imagine that you're meeting them at a party for the first time. You're not going to walk right up and be like, what do you mean to me?
Yes.
What message do you have for me? Blah, 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 blah. Like, you're going to like take a minute and like check them over, get to know them, ask them about themselves, like blah, blah, blah. And I think like that's, a similar process to what you're explaining is you're looking to connect and get to know your intuition and create a relationship with it.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Okay. And then step 2 is the painting classes, which was there a term that you used for that? And one was connection.
Create.
Perfect. Okay. And then
also, I do want to say, it's just to create something. So I have worked with people, burned out artists come to me when they've lost themselves because they're creating for other people all the time. Mm-hmm. And so they have different needs. Someone came to me and they were a professional musician. So in talking with them, it became really clear that painting might not be the best thing that they needed to do. So instead of them painting, I said, why don't you just play while I paint? And we'll do this for 20 minutes and you can see how this feels. And so that creation needed to happen in the form of music and not in the form of painting.
Right. Because that's their form of, I was thinking about this when we were talking earlier, is that like you're a guide and you're a channeler and your mechanism, if you will, or your vehicle is painting. And so for them, right. So for them, their vehicle is music.
Yeah. So their soul seemed to be expressing itself through their music. Mm-hmm. And so creating doesn't have to take the form of art. Right. Some people are amazing at cooking, and that's where they come alive. It's the place that you come alive and you feel in what people call flow. It's like this place of timelessness.
Well, see, if you ask me, I'm an Italian, so cooking is art.
Yes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was saying, like, art is a term that we can kind of play around with it, because I mean, we create art with our bodies, we create art with the food that we make. I mean, this singing, music, there's so many different ways to create art.
Yeah, and there's so much attached to the word art. There's so much perfection attached to it. And I just want to dismantle all that. I get to hear people's blocks and, I can't do this. And my question is, well, are you ready to try? Mm-hmm. You're talking to me, so there's something that's drawn you to me. But it doesn't matter if you can't draw. Maybe that's not how if you don't like it, that's different than just being afraid of doing it, right? So, right. And I have to work with all of these, and our society there's so much weirdness surrounding art, and I'm still working through it myself because I didn't go that route, right? Like, I had a number of art shows, and even they're multi-layered. Usually there's performance and there's other people that come and do different art besides my visual art. But I'm still working through the layers of perfectionism that's surrounded with this weird art culture that we've just had for thousands of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and just creating art for the sake of connecting to yourself and then to the world.
Well, I just posted on Instagram today. Like, I just picked up my glazed pottery pieces.
I loved them. I saw them, and oh my gosh!
I still have one more. I have a statue that I did of like a female form, and oh my god, I love it so much. And that was one that I just started with a block of clay and just kept moving and working it until it like came in this form. But I bought a special glaze for her, so she's not done. But I literally like hadn't worked with clay in like 30 years. But I've always loved it because I can't paint good enough to feel really, I mean, I've made some stuff that I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Right. But I would never be like, I'm a painter or, you know, whatever. Whereas like clay, there's something I can always kind of be happy with what I get out of it. Like I actually feel like my soul gets represented in the things that I create. Right. But it's not serious. And even like some of the things I did, like I made a couple paint palettes, those like were planned ahead of time and stuff like that. But I think even then it was, for me, it was just a break because I was so close to burnout that because I was working really hard at the time. I was like, I know I need to do something that doesn't include my conscious mind. Like I need to take time to connect with the unconscious. And for me, in a way where my hands are messy and like, I can't be structured. I can't be perfect, like, you know, or whatever. But yeah. And I think the more we allow ourselves the freedom to play, and I know you talk about that all the time and I love it. The more we allow ourselves to play in whatever vehicle we decide to drive that day, right? I think the healthier we'll be overall.
I think so too, because play is a huge part of our development. As children need unstructured time to just do whatever. And even
as adults.
Yeah, I know.
When I was going through, I went through a lot of training in like adult learning principles. So I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say it's like more than 50% increase in information retention when they learn through playing a game than reading or lecture or whatever. Right. And it's not just the doing it, it's because you're having fun. You're enjoying yourself and like figuring things out. Yeah. So play is really important.
I think so too.
Okay. So connection is number one. Number two is create in whatever vehicle you want to drive, right? Whatever works for you. And then
something that awakens something in you. And this is, I think, important for, the fine artists, I think that most of them arrive at their greatest work in the world through this therapeutic process that I'm talking about, where they are connecting with themselves and making art just for themselves regularly. You look at all the masters and they had such juicy practices like that. They were just so prolific in what they were doing. They were doing it a lot, like all the time, living and breathing it.
Well, and I think that connects to the third one, which is embodiment. And it's taking all of that from, because when we're working with the unconscious and we're working with that's beyond us, and we start bringing it into the physical, is when it really, I think, brings home like the healing practices, or not practices, but
I think so. And I have little snippets of embodiment throughout, especially when you get to the create process, because what was happening with me, if you're super sensitive and healing a lot, it was causing some body issues with me because I wasn't moving that energy through my body, right? Opening up all these doors and stuff is getting out. You have to provide a way for it to just get out, and physical movement and embodiment is so important for that. But that is different than I did a lot of performance too, in addition to like doing all this sciencey stuff. When I was doing that, also started doing performance where I was in a belly dance troupe, and I started dancing and did a lot of stuff with Burning Man and with burlesque. I had a very brief burlesque career, and that I loved because you're wearing a lot of costumes, right? That is an embodiment process. If you're going to perform and move your body in the way of a character, or actors have to do this in order to be successful. They have to embody the unique qualities, and you're never going to know, like, just the way someone holds their mouth will dictate, it'll change the whole character of everything, right? And you have to really get to know that. And so I do that embodiment practice, but with parts of yourself, like your muse, your own inner muse. What does your own inner muse like to smell like? What does my inner muse is a female. So I'm going to talk about my muse as a she. What does she like? What does she like to wear? What feels good up against her skin? And after you've painted her, now you are ready to take that relationship deeper and then start feeling what that energy feels like, and evoking it forward in your body, and not like, and then expressing it so that the world can see and feel it. So that is the embodiment. So they're peppered throughout my classes for management of the energy and the healing process. But when you get into the embodiment, that is, and I've seen a lot of I've seen people's lives change through this. So
it's very alchemical. So, yeah. I mean, you and I have talked alchemy before, and like, as I'm trying not to butt in on your talking so much, but I'm just like, oh, and
yeah.
But it's very alchemical, and like this, that's very much the coagulatio stage, is where you bring it into the flesh, into the form, and you work that, right? And you perfect it, and you move it, and you be it. And that's what makes it solid and real and able to continue on through the process of individuation.
Yes, it's very much, all of this will lead you to a process of individuation, whether you like it or not. Individuation, I would say, is not like there's like, I'm individuated. Yay. Right. It's really hard, right?
Yes.
In that process, you are you, and everything that isn't aligned with you is going to fall away.
And there's all the little ones inside the big one.
Yeah.
Right? So you're like, oh, good, I'm done. And then you're like, wait, what's happening again?
Yeah. And so my hope is that with my offerings, with whatever level, is to help people become more conscious of where they're at in that process. Mm-hmm. So it helps me ease my overwhelm when I know where I'm at, like, when things are not going right. Okay, well, that's because I'm not in alignment. This isn't the right place for me. Mm-hmm. And then I know that I can step out and go to a place that is, and things will start falling into place easier. So that is my whole intention with everything that I'm doing, is, number one, I just want this to be useful and helpful. So people tell me, oh, this and this, and I did, and I'd say, so it was helpful. Yeah. Okay. I'm doing something right then. I'm going to keep doing this but I want it to be helpful and practical. As people create so much beauty in their lives, I want that to serve a practical purpose, even if it means that the practicality of it is to create an environment of play,
Well, and I think there's something really special to being intentional and aware of what you're doing, even if it is just play, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, one of the things I've always admired about you, Tricia, is how connected you are with your intuition and your place in the flow. And like, I mean, in conversations we've had, you're so clear you'll even be clear about your lack of clarity. Like,
oh my God, yeah.
you're just very connected. And I've like always admired that about you. And I think a big part of it is like paying attention, right? being aware of how different things are impacting you, how they're changing parts of your lives, how what you're doing is creating change or not. Because like you said, you can then choose like, oh, this isn't working, so I'm going to get out and go over and do this because I know that this will work for me right now.
Yeah. And you've been really helpful in helping me clarify that. That is not an easy thing to clarify. Once you start getting into this work, once you start standing, I've been climbing a lot of mountains to get here and healing. I think I've just been through so many things. My body is one that tells me, and if I don't listen to it, it'll get to the point where I absolutely have to, or
same.
So I think that just living through some of that, and also I've been honored to just surrender. So much of what I teach too is you're not only doing this, is also what makes this, what I do, so different than probably, this is what makes intentional creativity and the umbrella of it different than so many other things, is that it puts you in a receptive space. So you're not designing something to be like, here you go. You're walking into an open-ended question and not expecting to think about an answer. You're walking into an open-ended question with a willingness to receive whatever comes to you. And being in a receptive space takes time because it's not really allowed a lot right now. It's getting better in our world, but this is all the stuff from the feminine that's really been shoved underneath the ground. And it's, I feel like, coming out of the cracks because it has there's a massive healing happening in our world, and it's not all pretty. There's hard parts about it, but a lot of things you have to be in a receptive space for. And
I was just going to say, I also think that like there's a lot of fear around that. People really want to know the answer. And
yeah, even more so than what there used to be. All this added structure is, I think it's creating a lot more fear and anxiety. And I'm sorry if you hear a cat. There's a cat meowing outside.
I don't hear it, but understood. Hey, you know what? I got a dog laying on my feet right now, and my cat just knocked a book off the shelf a minute ago. I don't know if you
okay, yeah, this cat he will terrorize this room if I let him in here. So.
You know, we're well loved by fur animals. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. But yeah, no, I think you're right. Is that like structure is great, but answers that are not answers that are true for us, they're not the right answers. And I think that can cause a lot of anxiety. And as much as people want to know the answers, there is so much beauty and growth and opportunity in allowing the unknown to exist, like being in that receptive state, like you're talking about. And that's why I think like a lot of the processes you do are so awesome, because it's a way for people to move into that space with a guide in a gentle way, right? Like it can be, because I work with people from a similar position, but in a very, very different way. So I know people are scared, which makes sense. I mean, if you've been raised your whole life that this is the way that the world works, and you're like, in the core of your being, you're like, I don't think so. But like, how do you start peeling back, those walls? And I think the process you're describing is like a really delicate and gentle way to move into that, which is nice.
Yeah, it requires a lot of surrender. And, that is something that people need to be ready to do. So, you can't just, or you're going to inflict more trauma on the person if you're just going to drag them through something. So, yeah, it's a delicate situation. It requires surrender in order to receive. You have to put your weapons down. You've got to take down those walls and let the air in so that you know what the air's feels like. And yeah.
Yep. Ugh. Okay, so we got about 15 minutes left. What I would love to do, as we've gone through this, I've been thinking, you have so many beautiful offerings coming up in various tiers. So what if we talk about them from each level of what you just shared, right? Because I know you already talked about it a little bit. So step one, connection. Like,
yes.
What, if you have any like simple practices that people can do on their own, feel free to share. And then I know, like you mentioned, doing doodling on Instagram and things like that. So anyway, tell us about what you got for connection.
Well, with connection, I like to just ask an open-ended question and just let my pen move. And the metacognitive drawing techniques that I will show, and these are techniques anyone can do. They're not trademarked. Anyone can do them. My teacher taught them to us. What it really did was I was writing and journaling, kind of like conversations with God, and then drawing and painting. And when she came up with this technique, what it did was it gave me a wonderful structure for something new to flow in that I was looking for. So there's 3 steps. And the first step is just write what is present at the top of your paper, and then just start drawing, and don't take your pen or pencil or marker off the paper. Just let yourself scribble until you're done, and you'll know when you're done. So that is that. This exercise also starts helping you tap into how you feel and somatics. It's a great. It's also great for your nervous system and your brain, because this combination of drawing and painting, which is also taught in intentional creativity, helps balance your right and left sides of your brain. It also helps you access the creative parts of your brain, and it helps you approach problems in a new way. So if you want to do any of those things, if you want to connect to your body, if you want to learn how to access the creative problem-solving parts of your brain and look at your life in a new way, start this process. And the first thing that you do is just write down what is present at the top of your paper, and then just start drawing. And then turn the page and ask and write down on your paper what is missing. And let yourself draw. This is the open-ended question. This changed my life when I was given this process, because what it did is it opens up the lid of something new to come in.
It's so powerful. Like, I mean, I haven't even done it yet, but I'm excited to go do it because it is so powerful. Like, and that's the thing I think about, like, art that is so beautiful, is that it can be so simple and so powerful.
Yeah. And for me, like, I am not a person of brevity. Simplicity is hard. Anyone that's worked with me, like, okay, that's a lot. Okay. So yes, this is simple. And so just let yourself draw after you write that question. And also, if anything comes through, like any messages come through, I write them as well, and see where you want to write them. Yeah. That's also interesting. So
this is a practice you could do every morning for like 5-10 minutes, and
your whole life. Yes.
Yeah, and just see what comes up. I love it.
Yeah. And then what I like to do after that, I don't think that she's included this in the process, but what I like to do is I like to paint. I like to put color to those 2 images. So start by just picking 3 colors if you have a time limit, because you could be there for hours. Right. But if you can't, then just pick 3 colors, and you can also use markers. But paint, there is a flow with paint, and I do encourage trying just a watercolor kit like this. I give people the $7 Prang watercolor kits that you use in grade school, and in my classes I provide those for a very specific purpose, and that is to connect them with their inner child and these that's probably the same watercolor set that they used when they were kids. But just start painting. And then when you're done, you'll know when you're done, turn the page again, and then say what I now know is, and see what comes.
Oh, I love that.
And just, again, start drawing or writing. Now, and so those are 3 things that you can do. You need 3 pieces of paper. I highly recommend watercolors, because you have no control over watercolors.
That is very true. I've used them a lot.
Not have control.
So what is present, what is missing, and what I know now, or what I now know. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And so then what are you offering, like, connection? For connection,
I'm offering 2 courses, and they are courses because the purpose is to build a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. That exercise that I just gave you will help you build a relationship with your intuition. I'm offering something, I call these doodle dates. What I just described to you, I call them a doodle date. Like, you sit down and you do a doodle. Mm-hmm. And I have a number of different doodles. So I'm offering a course on that. It's a doodle date course, and it's how many weeks? It's like 8 or 9 weeks.
Okay. Is it online or in person?
Well, it's in person now, but what I want to do this year is get as much of my stuff online as possible.
Okay.
So it is in person, but if you want to do it and you don't live in my area, talk with me and we will work something out.
Okay.
So,
and you can sign up on your website?
Yes. And everything is, and I'll give you my website information.
I'll post it all with the podcast information. Yeah.
Okay.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So,
okay.
And then another class that I have is called La Luna. And this is about embodied rituals of moonifestation. And this is all about, I'm doing a series of new and full moon rituals. A lot of people are wanting to connect with the moon, and I incorporate all of these creativity practices in with my new moon rituals. And with them, you'll create it. These rituals are a couple hours long. And then in the full moon, it's an ecstatic dance ritual. So it's to help burn off some of the energy. But there's a lot of what we talked about. There's a lot of active imagination where you literally are using these meditation shamanic practices to connect to the moon deity. So might be different than you're connecting with the moon deity and planting your intentions in the womb of the world and seeing how those play out. I made them into a course because you really have to show up repeatedly to be able to follow these cycles of manifestation. What will eventually happen is you'll become aware of the cycles of manifestation. I talk a lot about the zodiac because these energies live within you and you're manifesting with them, whether you know it consciously or unconsciously.
Right. Absolutely. So is this one in person as well?
This one is in person, but again, if you don't live in the area and you're not able to come to the rituals, they're one of them's on Wednesday night. The doodle date course is on Wednesday evenings. Okay. And then the moon rituals, and they're every other week. And then the moon rituals are every other week because that's when the new and full moons are, and they're on Thursday evenings. Awesome. But if you're unable to go, then I can provide an online format for you as well. So that's the connection level. Okay. And I want to continue doing these every quarter.
Lovely. All right. And so then to take it to the next step into create, then what do we got?
So for create, I've got a divine masculine painting class, which I'm super excited about. And that's going to be it's after the summer solstice when it's peak sun. That's a very masculine time. Yes. And this is to connect people with their divine masculine.
Men and women. It's not gender.
Yeah, it is not gender specific, and any gender.
Yes, thank you.
And so this is to really heal and help you connect with those energies. And then I'm having a Paint Your Muse class. And also I'll be releasing the online version of that class in July.
Ooh.
That's to connect you with your muse. In person is great because you get there, you get it done.
Yeah.
They're 4-hour classes. Online classes are great because you can go really deep and do it at your own pace. But you've got me guiding you through the process, but you don't have the community aspect of that. So there's not as much accountability, but if you are wanting to really deepen this practice and set up your own painting space in your life, in your home, and do everything, then the online classes are the way to go.
Okay. And so that'll be released in July. So if they wanted to be informed right away, they should sign up for your newsletter.
Yeah, sign up for my newsletter because I'm trying to get these things online. Let's see. And then I have a class that I'm super excited about called Monsters and Seeds, and that's for the fall equinox. And that I'll show you this is my Monsters and Seeds book that I made a couple years ago. So fall is a time of sorting seeds, right? And then it's also a time of Halloween where people get to really embody energies that they don't normally get to do by dressing up. And, this is a form of getting in touch with your archetypes and embodying things. And so there's one side of this book. It's like a little accordion book.
Oh, that's cute.
And these are all the seeds that you want to bring into another cycle of fruition for your life, right? And then on the back, you get to make some monsters, and these are mixed media. So these are my little monsters that I made, and they are so adorable. And you get to communicate, and they all have a voice, and they all have something to tell you, but you get to know your monsters and know what they want from you.
And I'll just share, I've been to a couple of Tricia's classes. I have done some acrylic painting, some watercolor. Like I mentioned earlier, clay's my thing way more than, right? But it's a judgment-free zone. Like what you're making is for you. And she's a great guide. So if you see her stuff and you're like intimidated, don't be. Like it's a really like nice atmosphere to like connect and foster your creativity. So I just want to put that.
Yeah. And surprise yourself.
Yes. Yes. That definitely happened.
I created that.
Yeah.
Didn't know I had that in me.
Yeah. All right. And then there's one more that you're working on
that I'm super excited about. And I'm having a Medusa painting retreat in late fall. Every late fall, I want to do a retreat on some of the dark goddesses, because this is the energy that, to be quite honest, women need to.
I want to go to this so
bad. And the earth is just starving for this energy to
we need to bring it forward.
Yeah. So I am super excited about that. It's going to be the first weekend of November. So the weekend after Halloween. I still have to make arrangements on the retreat center, but I need to get in touch with. I'm so excited, and they're hopeful. And so the location isn't defined yet, but that's going to be in the weekend after Halloween.
But it will most likely be in Missouri, though.
It'll be either in my home teaching space or it'll be at a retreat center.
Okay. Awesome. So if you want to hang out with me and Tricia, definitely go to that one, because I have been kind of maybe hounding her about it a little bit for the past year. So I am really excited about that one. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then the third one, embodiment. Is there anything specific you have coming up for that third one, or?
Embodiment is more of my individual coaching programs.
Oh, gotcha.
So I have coaching packages on my website as well. And it's you can choose a sets of 3. You can sign up by choosing, they go in sets of 3.
Okay.
And you can get as many or as little as you want, but you do have to show up for 3 of those sessions right now. I'm building out the embodiment for some of the archetypal painting classes that I'm hosting, but they're not released yet.
Awesome. So. Cool. Well, we're just about at time. Was there anything else that you wanted to share before we get into our farewells?
Yeah, if you're in a bind and you just are in a situation that you're not sure how to get out of, unsolvable problems, logic isn't working, but you have this little voice that just wants you to do something that it might seem kind of ridiculous. It might seem like, just get out your pen and draw. Just dance to this song. I just want to tell you, it is so important to listen to those voices as much as you do your logical mind, because there's so many treasures in your life that taking action on that one little thing could change the whole trajectory of your life.
That's perfect, because the last thing I would ask you is, if there was one thing you wanted to share, what would that be? And I think you just did it, and it was perfect. Yeah, awesome. And yes, I can't say anything more. That was perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tricia.
Thank you so much, Adrienne, for having me back on. It's just such a pleasure to
always. Yeah. And I will post links for her website and everything else that you might need to find all of the offerings that she shared with you tonight. So you can connect. All right. Well, thank you very much. And goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast that live streams every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you'll join us again for another. Take care.